Hello everyone, this is Riddhi Ghosh. I am the assistant editor of Banking and Finance Post magazine, a bi-monthly magazine by Elets Technomedia, which covers all the updates from around the banking financial sector. And I am here to welcome you all to an exclusive roundtable discussion on the topic titled The Future of SME Banking. As we all know, the credit gap in the SME segment has resulted in huge potential for banks, and some of the research reports have also suggested that the gap is hoping around 16.66 lakh crores. This is said to be a large segment for the banks to serve, and with the growing attention in this sector pertaining to SME lending, banks are now finally looking into technology and digitization to build the future of SME banking. Today, Backbase is organizing this exclusive roundtable discussion, and this is organized by Elets Technomedia, India's biggest B2B multimedia platform. For this roundtable discussion, I would first like to welcome Mr. Sanjay Narayan. He is CGM of Union Bank of India. Welcome, Mr. Narayan. We now have Mr. Jatinder Mohan Singh Shah. He is the Chief Operating Officer, SME Lending, Fincare Small Finance Bank. Welcome, Mr. Shah. We would then like to welcome Mr. Prasanna Lohar. He is Head Digital Innovation and Architecture, TCP Bank. And we have Mr. Riddhi Dutta, Regional Head of Asian and South Asia, Backbase. I would now like to welcome Mr. Dutta and request him to take this forward. Over to you, Mr. Dutta. He would be moderating the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rashi. Thanks for the introductions and good afternoon, everybody. And thanks for joining us today on the roundtable, as Rashi mentioned, which is on the future of SME banking. Now, when we are talking about SME banking, although banks have been focused a lot on the retail end of their digital transformation journey. And I think all three of you representing your particular banks have done a lot on the retail set of customers. There has been a noticeable rise in terms of both investments as well as innovation in the SME banking space. Now, for instance, I think we all know about Facebook and the initiative that they are trying to do in India, where they have launched the small business loans initiative for for SMEs across almost 200 cities across the country. Now, another consideration, and I was talking to Jatinder just before this started, is the improved efficiency of neobanks, the so-called neobanks, as well as fintechs, which they are able to offer when it comes to specifically the lending process and making loans more accessible to both the MSMEs as well as SMEs, if you look at the broader India context. I think Rashi also mentioned that the credit gap in the SME segment has resulted in a huge potential for banks to serve this segment, especially around the lending space, as I mentioned. So in the next our 45 to 60 minutes, I think let's discuss on few important topics here, right? And the first and the foremost point that I would like to start this discussion with is how can we collectively, as banks, as technology institutions, as fintechs, how can we overcome some of these key challenges when it comes to how we are onboarding SMEs to a banking ecosystem, as well as how we are then servicing those SMEs. So I think that would be one of the first points that we would like to discuss. From there, we would like to pick your brains in terms of understanding how could you as banks, and here we have different types of banks, how could you leverage the fintech and the larger ecosystem to leapfrog your current SME offerings, and we would like to hear your thoughts on that. And then finally, some vision and some crystal ball gazing in terms of what does the future of SME banking look like in India, right? So this is an open discussion, gentlemen. So feel free at any point of time to chime in with your thoughts, with your own experiences, as we work together to try and serve our SME customers better. So let's start off with the first question, which is everybody's pain point, which is, what are some of the key challenges when it comes to both onboarding as well as servicing SME customers? Does anybody want to start off, or if there is no particular preference, I would probably like to get Mr. Sanjay to sort of start off with his views, and then we can go around the table once we hear him speak about it. Mr. Sanjay?
Yeah. So So good evening, everybody. It is nice to be on this roundtable conference. This MSME forms a very important segment in India's GDP. We are having almost 633 lakh units which are classified as MSME. And the government is also quite keen to give MSMEs space where they can grow. So you would have seen the definition having changed from MSME 2006 Act. In 2020, they have changed the basic tenet of the definition of MSMEs. The basic reason of changing was not only to include lot of other people also into that MSME, but was to also give the MSME the chance to grow and scale up to the economies, to have a benefit of economies of scale. Because initially what was happening was that the MSMEs were limited with regard to their investment in plant and machinery. And as and when that MSME used to reach that level, the MSME was not growing and not going out of MSME segment, but was creating another unit into it. So the economies of scale was not available to MSME. So the government, it is a wonderful move of a government to bring in the change in the definition, which will definitely allow the MSMEs to grow to a very larger extent. Now, as far as the key challenges for onboarding MSME comes, particularly for the banking industries, we have to understand that the segment MSME is largely unorganized segment. It is not an organized segment, and the total MSME, out of total MSME, 99% is micro industries. So again, you have to understand this, that the people who are actually forming the MSME segment are quite small in nature. They do not have that much of capabilities to scale up to the digital level or to approach a bank, formal bank, for their needs to be fulfilled. So this was major challenge, and in traditional banking, it was getting difficult day by day how to onboard these MSMEs into the formal section. So to help out of it, this fintechs have played a very important role. Now they have reimagined the journey. They have helped the banks to inculcate every MSME into the space, and we are quite keenly watching how to onboard them. And the data and the digital footprint, everything we are now trying to capture and help the MSMEs to get onboarded.
Okay, I think some very good points there, Mr. Sanjay, especially around the change in definition of SMEs and MSMEs and how that is helping them achieve the economies of scale. Now, specifically on onboarding, and I'd like to bring around Mr. Jatinder here. Mr. Sanjay spoke about fintechs playing a big role in terms of reimagining the process, but he also emphasized that a lot of these MSMEs are not at a position where either they have access to the banks or they are in a position to approach banks to take care of their day-to-day needs. Now, when it comes to fintechs, and you as somebody who is looking at the SME sector for your bank, what would be the most important thing? Is it in terms of how fintechs are orchestrating an onboarding journey, or is it more around how fintechs are allowing you as a bank and the SMEs at the same time to get a complete transparent view of their entire onboarding process and status? When we're talking about modern neobanks, I think one of the key differentiators that they are bringing to the table is allowing transparency, allowing context of where a particular application is. What do you think, Mr. Jatinder, from a pure onboarding journey, is going to be the make or break in terms of whether SMEs will take through that entire journey or drop out somewhere in the middle?
No, I think basically if you break the problem, the question is, one is on the digital adoption. As Sanjay just mentioned, majority of these folks are micro in nature. So when you're very small, so one, you don't even have access to banking infrastructure. Let me break it down further into tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, 4, 5, because the stories in all the tiers is very, very different. If I talk about the metro tier 1 and tier 2, which is the majority of the folks in terms of CASA book, where these folks generally would have access to banking infrastructure. But then still we find that the digital adoption is a little on the weaker side. Secondly, from a bank's perspective, today banks are also trying to create the infrastructure to onboard these guys seamlessly. With the latest guidelines of RBI coming in picture from a video KYC perspective, in the earlier times, onboarding a customer means if I have a branch, so with a vicinity of maybe 5-10 kilometers, I can onboard a customer. But can I actually onboard a customer who's like 250 kilometers from my branch? The answer was no. So, so a couple of those aspects are coming into picture. Secondly, I think what the government, if you see from the last couple of years, is also trying to propagate of getting these, the micro segment specifically into the main banking foray. So as Sanjay, also mentioned about the MSME Act, which they got undergone a change. So today, even a retailer can actually onboard into an Udyam Aadhaar number, and he can get an Udyam number, whereby he can classify himself or herself as an MSME. And once you classify yourself as an MSME, then there are broad kind of attributes which from a banking fraternity which are being available to you from a help perspective. Second point is a lot of these folks may or may not have a traditional bank always would require a hard collateral to give you any kind of I would say a loan. Getting onto the banking platform is like opening a savings account. But I'm saying, the real problem for an MSME is excess of capital. So I think government again is doing a lot of stuff. If you look at the CGT MSC schemes or CGMFU, so these are a couple of schemes, given by the government, whereby without the collateral requirement, you can actually start getting loans up to about 10 lakhs, which are actually, in a way guaranteed by the government, somewhere about 75% of the total loan value. So that is one aspect to it. If you look at tier 3, 4, 5, now there the bigger problem is that the nearest ATM is about 10 kilometers away. So leave alone the bank branch. So that is where the banking correspondent which actually came into picture about 7-8 years back, or maybe 10 years back. I think that's playing an important role today. Earlier on, it was a very, very physical mean of onboarding a customer, but today with technology, with Aadhaar coming into picture, I think a lot of these folks are coming into the mainstream. Now, once you get them onto the mainstream, then I think the real challenge would be that how do you service these customers in terms of giving them access to working capital. So if you're able to solve this riddle, I think it will be a win-win situation. Now, how a neobank is making a difference. Neobanks are, of course, breaking the traditions, and they are coming up with new age technology. They have no boundaries at all. So it is time still to be seen that how these folks will be able to pan out. But yes, the answer is yes. I think they're making a difference. And as far as a bank is concerned, there is no harm in tying up with a so-called neobank to learn and understand what they are trying to do. And but at the same time, the bank is also supposed to be ready with its own infrastructure, which is very, very important. Otherwise, it will be a very different story next 5 years down the line.
Absolutely. Again, some very good points, Jatinder there. Prasanna, now building on top of what Sanjay and Jatinder said, and given your background of looking at digital technology architecture, where do you see the maximum amount of friction that is currently happening when it comes to onboarding SMEs today? And please keep in mind some of the points that Jatinder mentioned, right? That there are SMEs in tier 1, tier 2 cities who probably have more access to digital. Then there are SMEs in tier 3, tier 4, where the correspondent or the agent is taking the bank to the particular SME. But purely from a journey perspective, where do you see the maximum amount of friction right now? And probably some suggestions in terms of how those could be overcome as well.
I think good points by Sanjay ji and Jatinder ji. I'll go with some of my experiences, rather interviews with SME customers. Okay, on overall how they really feel towards banking. I think overall experience is not that great. This is what I can always say as far as compared to retail SMEs are concerned, right? And what we have seen in the banking, almost complete banking has failed to provide a better, flawless, straight-through experience for SMEs to onboard, right? There might be many more software tools available for SMEs to operate accounting and forecasting and get through that whole inventory management and so on. But as far as the banking is a concern, to have a straight through banking experience through whatever they are operating is maybe okay, may not be okay for the way the tier 2, tier 3, the way Sanjay has explained, right? And it's really good analogy to really see your customers, where are they, right? The most important, I think, digital literacy is very, very important aspect for any of those SMEs, right? Ask those small SME shop owners, right? And ask them to create a current account, right? This is the whole process, and go and ask the current account. They will open a current account. Account opening is not that a great challenge for them. They will provide all those documents which are really required. But how do we operate that account? Right, so either on internet banking, either on those so-called some of those digital mobile apps has been come. There is another process, right, which is again a manual process to get access of internet banking or some other. It is not a 1 day or 2 day process. It is too much chaotic process for a customer who is not in a tier 1 or tier 2. It is really altogether different experience, right? He has to consult with so many people. At times you feel, why I'm doing this, right? So I think coming back to the challenge as well as an opportunity, it's an opportunity for banks to really now concentrate on SME banking, okay, to provide a better experience for onboarding followed by engagement tools. I think although realities, it may not be the great story, but many banks are now putting a lot of effort since last couple of years, and there are very good apps which we see are coming up. Some of the digital heavy, tech heavy banks, right, these days. But I would like to see a process where no man is involved, and an even tier 6 customer is coming onto that platform or coming to a branch, and it is happening seamlessly, right? Less of documentation, more of a right KYC, which is already available in my DigiLocker or which is their Udyog Aadhaar, right? So let's utilize that. More of alternate data relevant to that SME, which gives more insights about that, whether it is NPA kind of SME or performing or non-performing. And immediately according to that, I'll provide this much banking. If it is really good, I will provide most of the banking services to him. You are not allowed to use internet because you are not at all trustworthy. So all those guidance has to come straight through in a very good pattern to the customer, SME customers. I think it is not straight through job unless somebody from top says that NPCI is having an opportunity to create a SME kind of ecosystem, and all the banks should follow that. Then only it will happen. Or a bank has its own aspiration and say, for my SMEs, I will create this path, and wherein I will really follow each and every business or functional compliance regulatory, followed by actual product, like good product which will give a better tool to build immediately, manage immediately, having right omni-channel experience on web, mobile, and we look at it, right? So I think, or if a product which has altogether this kind of a platform ready with little customization, this is available for that bank, and then I would say, yeah, certainly good, we'll go for it. I'm talking in dreams, but I think I can say that some of the banks have done massive job. I can name, but I should not name. They have done very good work. The way we interact with the service partners, we also learn from them how we should do it, right? So far, what has happened, banks already taken care of retail customer heavily since last 7, 8, 9 years, right? We can see mobile banking is already available for retail customers. UPI is available, or any of those payment instruments are available. Lending is available immediately. But for SMEs now, this is the right time, right? As our friends were talking about MSME Act law, lot of facilities are provided by government. Lot of investments are available, and moreover, new ecosystem account aggregator where we can always get the data from a GST and many more other things. PCR is going to come soon. So I think this is the right time to create our experiences on front office and utilize all those data points which are coming, and provide a better experience to the SMEs. Meanwhile, you should have a piece of or a radar of people or a force of people to onboard SMEs. It's not straight. It's not a really great experience with the way fintechs. Now let's talk about fintechs, or say example open, or there are many more, right, who are now onboarding on top of the API. So the process which bank has followed, the process which regulators has asked rather banks to follow, it's a bit chaotic or a bit complicated, right? Now this process is being studied very nicely by some of the fintech companies, and they have built it, and as well as they have given the digital literacy also to those SMEs. And what they are doing, they are riding on this whole journey on APIs or open banking of a bank, right?
Yeah.
So things are available there only. They are just connecting dots to provide a right set of a customer's experience to the certain set of a customer. But this certain set of a customer should elongate furthermore to 80-90% of a customer, as our sir was talking about tier 2, 2, 3. That's a very good analogy once again I say. And based upon that year, we have to really create those kind of experience tools to them. So last line from my end, the way we have done. Okay, suppose say example, we already have some of the SMEs onboarded. What we have done, there are some tools like tallies or zogos or some of those local. Every state has its their own monopoly of tools. So we have onboarded those tools with our APIs, maybe by fund transfer or statements or filing GSTs, so that some of the part of a job becomes easy for them. But again, digital literacy, yeah, this can be done through Tally, this can be done through Zoho. That more adoption has to come. I think it's like a WhatsApp experience bringing out to the SME model, right? You don't have to teach how to really text, send a message, or upload images, send images. I think similar kind of stuff we should build. I think most of the banks are doing it. Yeah.
No, so Prasanna, I think lot of points and a lot of very good points. Thanks for that. In fact, you have already answered some of the other questions I might have asked in the as we go along, but I'll still come back to you in some time. Now, one very important point that you mentioned, Prasanna, was in terms of after onboarding, how are we engaging SMEs? And that is
Yes.
a right segue for me to go to Mr. Sanjay and Mr. Jatinder here. That if you're talking about servicing SMEs or your current SMEs who have been onboarded, now let's try to look at what are the broad areas that SMEs are trying to do when they're talking about transactions. They would be looking at payrolls, they would be looking at doing payments, they would be looking at cash flows and forecasting that, and they would probably be looking at getting access to a line of credit. I think broadly, if you look at it, those are 4 or 5 areas what SMEs are looking at. But unfortunately, today, and I think Prasanna also touched upon it, today all of this might be happening in their own silos. For example, accounting is happening from a Tally or a Zoho. Cash flow forecasting is happening from a different system. So essentially, SMEs are not getting that one single integrated view of everything that they want to do from a day-to-day transaction basis. So, Mr. Sanjay, question to you from your bank's perspective, whether you are there already or probably it's there in your roadmap, how are you looking at servicing SMEs, your existing SME customer base, so that they have this one single consolidated view of operations that they would need to do day to day?
Yeah, Riddhi, before I respond to what you said, what you were asking, I would like to respond to a very good point of Prasanna. Actually, Prasanna mentioned that the SME sector is not that fully blown out in digital arena, because we see a lot of banks, lot of private sector banks doing a lot of things for retail customers. So retail is quite mature. At this point in time, India has seen 8-9 years of retail lending, even personal loan lending, normal lending, and even some banks have gone up to, in case of housing loan lending, vehicle loan lending. These are quite mature journeys. So as far as the MSMEs are concerned, these journeys are very scarce in nature, very rudimentary in nature at present, as far as the Indian economy and Indian banking system is concerned. So, just to brief about my bank, I would talk more about Union Bank rather than talking about any other bank. So, my bank is quite positive and quite bullish as far as this digital interventions are concerned. We have created a separate vertical altogether for this digitization. We call it for digital lending platforms, the asset side also and the liability side also. We have taken care of by creating a separate vertical altogether. We have experienced a few of the digital journeys. Union Bank of India is having one of the best journey as far as concerned is in Shishu Mudra is concerned. We were talking about, Prasanna and Jatinder both put in place that SME journeys are not end to end, and we envisaged it end to end, right from the place where there is no intervention of any banker coming into place, and the mudra borrower, that too a Shishu Mudra borrower, that means the exposure is less than 50,000 rupees in that case. So you can understand a borrower taking a loan of up to 50,000 only is able to do a journey on his own, sitting at his shop and getting disbursement in 5 to 7 minutes. So there is almost no manual intervention involved anywhere. If the borrower qualifies the business rule engine, the entire documentation happens, and the loan is disbursed to his savings account. So this is something which is, I'm open that people who are hearing it should also use this channel. Presently, it is only available for ETB customers of Union Bank of India. We'll be very shortly launching for NTB customers also. So this is something that we have done, and we are going great on it. Apart from that, Union Bank of India is also looking for cash flow based lending, and we are making efforts that the entire the lending process, because what we understand, as Prasanna was also mentioning, that opening an account is not a problem for any MSME. The major issue which comes and looms ahead of MSME is the requirement of capital, and how to lend them, and how to lend them digitally without much of a intervention, because 99% of the MSMEs are micro in nature. Even if when they come to a bank or a branch to take a loan and they have to close their shop for even one day, they have a opportunity cost involved there. People are not conscious of the opportunity cost that they are going to lose when they are going to come to the branch and sit in the branch for the loan. If it all can happen digitally, it will be a great help to all the MSMEs. So we are very mindful of all these facts, and Union Bank of India being a very large public sector bank, we are looking into it, and we are very consciously developing journeys, and we are very consciously striving very hard to help this strata of economy. And we know that MSME contributes approximately 30% of our GDP, employs 111 million people into it. So if we develop journeys in these sections, this economy is going to be helped, the country is going to be helped, and the MSMEs are going to be helped.
Yeah, Mr. Sanjay, some music to my ears when you're using terms like journeys. I'm just thinking that it is not coming from a banker, but more from a person who is building a technology platform or something like that. So it's really pleasing to hear these terms coming from bankers like you, senior bankers like you, which also goes to show the shift that is happening in the mindset of bankers as well, right? That it is not only about the products that I'm offering, but it is about the entire journey that I'm trying to build for my customers. So really great thoughts there, Mr. Sanjay. Now, Jatinder, on that thought, Sanjay spoke about how do I get a credit access to an SME without him or her closing down the shop for a day and then coming to the branch and doing all of it. I think we all acknowledge that is a big pain area. What I would like your thoughts, Jatinder, both from a Fincare perspective, as in your bank's perspective, as well as whatever you're generally seeing in the industry, is on one hand, there is credit, right? On the other hand, there is this day-to-day, as I was talking earlier, the day-to-day operations that I have to do payments. I have to, do payrolls, for example, for slightly larger SMEs. I might have to look at my cash flow, my liquidity over the next few quarters, right? Now, do you see an end state where an SME would be able to do all of that from one single place, or do you still see that is still some way off in terms of where the maturity of the Indian SME banking industry is right now? So your thoughts on that, Jatinder?
No, sure, thanks. I think two important aspects, which every bank today has to consider, which I think they are. One is, completely digitize whatever are the processes which are there in the system, and then look in for automation. So as you know, what Sanjay mentioned, I think it's important to break down the journeys. Now, I'll give an example. Now, when an MSME customer walks into your branch, for example, so he will come with a this big a file, for example. Now, my question, has always been to the, to the credit and the risk fraternity, is that can you actually underwrite the customer who's walking inside your bank branch basis only bank statement? And the answer is yes and no, maybe multiple aspects are there. Another question is if he comes back to you with only GST statement for last 1 year, will you be able to underwrite the customer? So I think the mind shift, what is happening for last couple of years is that now a lot of alternate data points are available. And when I mentioned about banking and what I mentioned about GST, these are hard collateral data. These are not alternate data point. Alternate data point can be if you have a POS machine on your premises, and I know that on a daily basis or a monthly basis, what kind of throughput are you carrying out on your POS machine? Can I actually structure a loan for you? So I think it has to go towards simplicity. Second very important point is gone are the days when the customer used to walk to the bank. The time has come when the bank has go to the customer's premises. Now, it's not a very easy journey. The reason is because, what everybody is talking here is that, giving a wholesale solution to an MSME, starting from his khata book to his payroll, to his lending requirement, to his banking requirement. So all of this can be done. But, I think from an architecture perspective of a bank, you need to be so smartly structured that you are able, that one, your thought process is that I will need to get in partnerships, because without partnerships, you will not be able to build this. For example, if I start going and replicating a Tele kind of a solution, I think it will be a dream. We'll never be able to make it. And as banks are structured, it will be a 5-year journey. So it is better to look at like-minded people, come out with an integration which is seamless. Then once you have onboarded the customer, either the proposition is while you're onboarding the customer, my question today is, in a bank, if you're getting a customer onboarded, so can you open his current account and give him a POS machine as well as a UPI handle at the same time? Sometimes the answer is not yes. And that is the state where we are right now because of multiple levels of integration. Once the customer has come in, then can you actually give him all of this that you mentioned today as a one-stop solution, as an app available on your app store, or or in your mobile banking or whatever internet banking that you call so. So if you're able to do that, then what actually happens is that you are now giving an access of 1 or 2 new attributes to the MSME through which he's going to operate, and ultimately the beneficiary is going to be the bank only, because bank will have another 1 or 2 sites on the turnover of the customer, on the way he's banking. So multiple attributes will come in. And also, I am of a firm belief that we all are bankers. So our old philosophy used to be that let me look at a track record of 10 months, 18 months, 24 months. Then I will structure him something as a top up if he's already a loan customer. I'm saying time has now come to look at progressive thinking in terms of data analytics, whereby can I look at a 3-month bank statement or a 3-month or a 6-month track record, and can I in the future can I predict what kind of track record is he going to be there, and can I give him a small sachet loan? It is not every time important for an MSME to be given a very large loan amount. Actually, that's a wrong way to do it, because all these folks actually require very small amounts for a very specific purpose. Until unless that he wants to buy some other piece of land or he's investing into some other aspect. But for running his business, typically the mistake that we do is that we give him a 3-year working capital loan, and in our mind call it as a short-term working capital requirement. How can a short-term capital requirement of 30-45 days can be sufficing with a 3-year loan tenure? So we will have to come out with sachet products, ease of onboarding them and ease of giving them on a click of a button. If you can do that, and I think as Fincare, the way we have structured in last about 4 years' time, digitization and automation is a very, very key and aspect, because we always have believed that will lay the foundation to lower cost of customer acquisition and scalable business model. because our majority of our customers are in tier 3, 4, 5 towns. So for me, if I don't do that, my cost of customer acquisition goes up very, very high. So that is one. Number second, we have created modules within the bank which are journeys, customer journeys. So today, I can very well say that if you come with a bank statement or with you come with a GST statement, I can actually structure a loan or an alternate data point through digital means. I can actually structure a loan in 5 minutes and give you. And that journey is also, online. So we don't have an application form concept in the bank, which is very interesting to look at. So because now today everything is digital, so we'll have to go back and conquer the earlier thoughts that why should we have paper if everything is digitally available today. So yes, the challenges are there that many people may not have digital aspects. Many people today work with a CA, and these are small guys, so the CA may have an access to his attributes, he may not have access. So a lot of those things are to be cracked, so it will take some time. But I think overall in last 4 or 5 years, a lot of technology interventions have already happened. So as I think Prasanna was saying that the WhatsApp movement for MSMEs, I think this is the time. If last 2 years, if you see the COVID environment, many people who are not adopting to the digital aspect, I think today safely we can say, and at least in metro tier 1 and tier 2 are in that journey. In tier 3, 4, 5 also, because of penetration of WhatsApp and other messaging applications, so people are now coming up to the curve. The question is the UI and the UX model that you are actually creating. Typically, a bank will always think like a bank. I think what we need to do is we need to think like a customer. How simple and easy the flow has to be. If you can do that, then I think that is where the journey is, and that is where I think there's the fintechs which are coming in place. And these are all young guys. These are all fairly young guys, maybe in the bracket of 20 to 25, 27. And they're coming with a, I would not say millennial, but I think they're coming with a nearly millennial kind of a thought process in terms of कि अगर मेरे को FD खोलनी है तो मैं एक बटन दबाऊंगा और FD खोल लूंगा फॉर एग्जांपल. बट अ टिपिकल बैंकर विल से कि सेविंग्स अकाउंट के पहले ऐप में जाऊंगा, ऐप में जाके देखूंगा इज देयर एन FD ओपनिंग ऑप्शन, आई क्लिक द FD ओपनिंग ऑप्शन, देन आई विल से ओके लिंक इट विद माय सेविंग्स अकाउंट. नाउ इफ यू सी इट, मेरा सेविंग्स अकाउंट तो एक ही है, उसको लिंक क्या करना है उसको. So this is the design thinking. So design thinking has to be a little different. That is where it is, and I think many people are now on that journey. Many banks have done a very wonderful journey. We are also on that path. Our vision statement is very clear. We have to be a digital bank. So that's the way we are going, and we are quite open to partnership. Our API architecture of the bank is made in such a manner that it's a plug and play kind of a phenomenon. I need to choose my partner. All my API stacks are available today. I just go and tie with them, and that is what we are doing in the last couple of months.
Perfect. So I think you again mentioned that point, Jatinder, which was my next question to Prasanna, is around the fintechs and the ecosystem, right? You said that there are so many fintechs that are coming up, and some of them are really doing a good job. Now, there is one challenge that I see, and this is just me thinking about from my perspective, is that some of these fintechs are offering the same set of offerings to the end SMEs also. So in a way they partner with banks, but in a way they also compete with banks. And that is, I think that is how fintechs have always been, that they can partner with you, but they can, if required, compete with you as well. Now, Prasanna, from your perspective, again, somebody who is looking at innovation, who is looking at digital, who is looking at architecture, do you see it as a threat or do you see it as an opportunity in terms of what fintechs are doing? And if you do see it as an opportunity, how would you nullify the threat where they can still directly go to an SME or still directly go to a customer and offer the same thing directly on their own? I think Prasanna, you are muted.
Yeah, I think Riddhi, a very good question. It always comes in everybody's mind, right? And this was, I think, quite a happening question in 16, 17. Fintechs are going to be threat to the banks, and maybe banking will vanish and so on. So that's how is the fact, right? I think we have seen, rather I have seen a day, I used to go along with my father at a bank branch for taking out the cash. And that moment I never thought that some mobile banking, internet banking, some dabba banking will come in our life and we'll do this transaction on the gadgets. Tomorrow's banking, if you see after 6-7 years, it will be invisible banking. Like, say example, our millennial customer, they are not aware of a branch. They are not aware of yeah, certainly we can do something going in the branch statements and paper banking and so on. They want experience where they are, and they don't want to see a bank face also. What they want to see, my banking service has to be amalgam in my platform. I am watching Netflix, I want to pay through Netflix. I am ordering food from Swiggy, I want my banking experience or my financial has to be available there. I have entered in the shopping mall, I should know where is that payment I can do in the air. So today and even I am driving my car should pay off immediately. So I think one of the example, I will not be surprised, car will be having the UPI handle attached with that account or account of a human being, right? So automatically payment happens provided I have given a consent. Yes, pay off these 500 rupees after giving OTP, something like that. So I think that's how banking experience will go out of the brick and mortar model. Slowly in my control, in my hand, in my mobile phone or on internet banking. Slowly it will go away from me. Even if it is going away from me, it is in my control whether to do the transaction, whether to open a account or not, right? So bank should have that opportunity. Say example, in 2008 payment gateway kind of a model or regulatory guidance came from RBI, and bank said, "Ki, it is not my business, let them do, we will ride on the that mechanism where the on the merchant e-commerce website customer will come, put his credit card, debit card or internet banking, and let the transaction be routed to my banking ecosystem through net banking and so on. Let it happen." This is how it has happened, right? But that what has happened, does that entity, payment gateway entity, has made bank vanish? No, it has given a more liberty for a customer to have a more options. We are sitting on many more options. UPI came in, we say Google Pay, Phone Pay has a very good market share, but regulation came and saying this much transaction only should happen with through one bank, right? So regulation is always there to protect bank. Why? Because government is regulation and a bank is a government. So these are all aligned entities together, right? Tomorrow fintech will come. I think Sanjay was talking about fintechs, right? They are very good. We should welcome them, and they have a very good different thought process for providing better customer experience. I look at how bank is a building, right, which is a 12 or a 10-story building. One of the floor, one of the room certainly can be taken care of one fintech for that experience, right? And as well as a bank can also do. Why not to really rent out those APIs and see how it can really happen in a better way for customer, right? And bank know how to really drive business, because banks are sustainable ecosystem. They are there since years together, and no, even if the banks go profitable, unprofitable, there is this ecosystem takes care of the banking. Nobody goes and says that this bank is closed down. What is meant by bank is closed down? License has gone, right? So or something has gone because of so many other reasons. But tomorrow any fintech goes down, nobody will discuss that for years together, right? So that's how is the stuff. So suppose, and it's an opportunity as a threat also. The way the valuation of fintech is going up and high, right, because of investments and so on. I really don't understand sometimes, and I do really understand why it is going up, right? So those fact figures are in front of us. For I should not name those companies, right? So those companies are like IPL sponsors, right? Within a no time, right? Why, right? So that's a different game altogether, valuation game, right? Tomorrow a bank says, I want to create my ABC XYZ and I will promote, do digital marketing. We can also do that, right? Why not, right? And banks have done it. There are examples of banks, they have created a super app and it is being utilized by millions of customers, right? So it's not a, it's the only thing bank has to really play around. If there is some partnership available, right, with a better collaboration, with a win-win opportunity, and at the end customer is also moving ahead, right? Customer is not waiting for a bank or a fintech. If some of non-banking entity also is providing me those services, customer will immediately will glue there, right? They have stopped going to cinema halls, right? But cinema will halls will what will happen? What happened to those STD ISD booths, or what has happened to Yahoo messages, right? The business model changed. New ways of things are coming. So banks are now adopting fintechs in a partnership so that we provide better services to the customer itself. Tomorrow's things, right? Tomorrow, what is going to happen? Your machine is going to be the customer, right? A SME who is having his own trucks and all, right? So those trucks will do the transaction, right? So either bank has a tech arm who will build those solution, or they partner with some tech partner, which we were always doing it, right?
Yeah.
Fintechs are some specific set of companies who solve a particular problem. They don't solve all the problems of a bank, right? If they are solving all the problems of the bank, they will become tomorrow's bank. This is what they are doing, right? They are going for NBFC's licenses after eventually, and that's how the whole banking ecosystem is taken care, right? A fintech company who is taking care of only onboarding, let's go with that, right? But only lending, okay, only savings or only current or only specific set of business. That's how the collaboration works with a bank remains at the core, and this fintech revolve around the bank. So earlier we used to always take care of our banking with the tech partners like Infosys and so on, right? Those are although tech companies, and we never thought they will become tomorrow's bank, although they have opportunity, right? But everybody has its own importance in the whole ecosystem, and if this is imbalanced, then it will be an issue for overall thing. But everybody understand, fintechs also understand they can't survive without banks, right? If they have to survive without bank, they have to become bank. They have to go for ask for the banking license, right? And running a bank, ask a banker when they sit in a bank how to make that margin out of paying off so much of a profit or a SLR, CRR to RBI, and what remains, right? How do we really run the bank for years together, such a sustainable, proven ecosystem, right? It's not so straightforward to give a threat to that proven ecosystem. Rather, it's a and fintechs are never. It was just some for few months. People used to say that fintechs are these things. I am worried about big techs, right? I am worried about big techs like Google's or Amazon's and so on. Unless we bring some kind of a regulation, right? Or some kind of a equilibrium between how big techs will collaborate with the banks or fintechs together. Otherwise, these fintechs will vanish, big techs will become everywhere, right? So I think we need to have a right equilibrium. I think some of our fintech founders are doing good job asking or recommending things to the regulator for peer-to-peer aggregation model, right? Tomorrow's banking gonna be a marketplace model, right? We have some of the examples like crypto models, like DeFi, decentralized finance, which is running properly without regulation, right? Neo bank, challenger bank, we always talk. We in India, we don't have any regulation around Neo, or you and we sit together, come up with an idea and start a challenger bank or a challenger fintech, right? But when it will be inculcated as a regulation, those may be converted as NBFCs or something like that, right? Again, for a certain service, they will have to rely on banking ecosystem. I think it's a thoughtful process, and this question will always come tomorrow, day after, and this question should come whether it is a threat or a competence, right? Then only we'll always see a right set of a collaboration between startups and fintechs and the banking ecosystem, any regulator. Yeah, can you imagine, right? Our regulator has completed 2 cohorts working with the fintechs, right? For a cross-border, one of them recently they have launched for the SME cohort, right? Why? Because they understand power of this fintech. They can create those minimum viable product ready for immediate integration with the banks with the right set of compliance and the regulation, the security, right? It may take for a fintech to talk to the several banks, understand that. So these cohorts are giving a streamlined approach to have a some kind of a better products ready for banks. I think, in my view, collaboration is the only saver for both banks and fintechs. If a bank will not collaborate with the fintech, they will be wiped out, and if a fintech will not collaborate with the bank, they will be wiped out.
Great, Prasanna. I know we are absolutely running out of time. So, I think we got some very good inputs, thought processes, as well as your vision from Mr. Sanjay, Mr. Jatinder, as well as Mr. Prasanna. If I have to summarize what I just heard, I think there were some key points and observations, right? And I'm just going to list down them so that we don't miss any of those important points that were covered today. So I think the first point, which was very clearly articulated, is that how are we onboarding SMEs, whether it's in tier 1, tier 2 segments, or it's in tier 3, tier 4 cities. In some places, SMEs will come to the bank. In more places, the bank needs to go to the SMEs. So that entire onboarding journey in a frictionless manner, in a paperless manner, I think that was also emphasized. In a frictionless, paperless manner is a very, very important thing. The second point, which was brought up very interestingly by Prasanna and then Jatinder and Sanjay, is around, once you have onboarded SMEs, how do you give them access to credit? How do you give them access to their cash flow? How do you, I think I love the example that you spoke about, Jatinder, that can you look at the cash flow over the next few months and then offer a pre-approved stash loan to an SME, right?
Yes.
Now that is where the servicing comes into picture. That how am I engaging the SMEs and not just giving them saying, okay, you have onboarded an account, now you do what you want to do, but really imbibe your bank into their day-to-day lives. Look at their spending patterns, look at their cash flow, and based on that, make recommendations to them. And that is what banking is all about. And I think the third point, which I think all of you touched upon, was around fintechs, around the ecosystem, and how they are playing a very important role, whether as a competition, whether as a collaboration, either by solving a particular pain point, as Prasanna was mentioning, somebody for lending, somebody for assets, somebody for deposits, specific, or broader fintechs, the larger fintechs who are doing that overall orchestration. That there are so many small players here. How can one single layer orchestrate their entire value out of all of this to ensure that your end customer relationship and their journey with the bank? So I think these are very important takeaways that we got from the session today, and I would like to thank once again, Mr. Sanjay, Mr. Jatinder, and Mr. Prasanna for your time as well as your valuable insights this afternoon. Thank you once again.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
So thank you to all our panelists for a very insightful and wonderful discussion on the future of SME banking. I'd like to thank Mr. Riddhi Dutta, the Regional Head of Asian and South Asia of Backbase, for moderating this session wonderfully and for providing his valuable thoughts and insights. Mr. Prasanna Lohar, Head Digital Innovation and Architecture, DCB Bank. Thank you, Mr. Lohar. Mr. Jatinder Mohan Singh Shah, Chief Operating Officer, SME Lending, Fincare Small Finance Bank. Thank you, Mr. Jatinder. And Mr. Sanjay Narayan, General Manager, FinTech Partnership and Digital Marketing, Union Bank of India. So once again, I'd like to thank all our panelists for a wonderful round of panel discussion. And now we will have a short 5-minute break. And when we return, we will have our first technology presentation for today on transforming the retail customer journey with video. Thank you.